everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Sharon and this is a channel that is dedicated to all things related to narcissism. I make videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on all types of topics related to narcissism. So if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. I would really appreciate it if you gave the video a thumbs up. It's a free way you can help me out. And definitely don't forget to leave a comment because I like to read what you have to say. So I have a very special guest with me today, an unexpected and unannounced special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself, special guest?
Hi everybody, it's Paris.
So this is, for those of you that don't know, Paris is my 19-year-old daughter, and we decided to have her on the channel today because of a discussion that we had this morning. So Paris is driving me to work, and I was telling her about a new series I was thinking about starting on the channel, Toxic Relationship Storytime. You know, for my family, we have found such a benefit in humor, being able to, now not that we don't take things seriously, we do. Our family has been annihilated by the narcissist, but we're trying to rebuild, and we find humor really does help. So I thought just telling some stories that had happened would just, I don't know, bring a little cheer to people, you know, make it not so horrible. So I was telling Paris this, and she started telling me some stories about my ex, and I had kind of forgotten about these stories, and I said, you got to come on the channel and share it. So Paris is here to share some toxic relationship story times with us.
Yes, that sounds like a plan.
All right, so Paris. So here we were, you guys, and I'm driving to work, and I'm telling her this, and Paris starts laughing and asking me if I remember the pool story. I'm like, the pool story? And I do remember it now, but I didn't at the time. So Paris, take it away. Give us some toxic story time.
All right, so I guess some background on for the pool story is for my brother's 13th birthday, he got a pool. So it's one of the ones that you build in your backyard. You know, you take it down in the fall. Just your typical family pool. Not with the narcissist. So he kind of messed up my brother's birthday. He didn't come home that night. So the day afterwards, he comes back to the house, like the day after his birthday, and he's, you know, world's best dad for like a day. That lasted for about a day. See, the reason why this gets kind of funny is our yard was not perfectly flat. So we needed to, I don't even know how to explain it. We needed to make it flatter. So our plan was
so the pool would, and the yard wasn't horrible. Like looking at it, it looked flat, but just when you laid a pool down, you know, it was one of those like above ground pools that you can take down. So to lay it flat, something had to be done.
Yes, we had to like level it out a little bit because the water, there was kind of just, we called it our shallow and our deep end. So it really wasn't that much of a difference, but even when it was like more level, there was like a 4-inch difference. Not that big a deal, but it was originally closer to a foot, so we had to fix this. So we were digging up the yard, we were straightening this, like adding sand to it to fix it.
I'm just going to interrupt you for 1 second because I feel like I need to give like a little background on the ex. He is not a can-do type of man. Like he's not somebody that can fix things. He's a bit of a bumbling buffoon. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. So like, I mean, I feel like even explaining this, it probably doesn't make sense because it should have been fairly straightforward. It wasn't. This pool, my gosh, the entire summer was such a pain. But so my brother and I, we were helping him fix it because it was my brother's pool. We wanted to be a part of this. And I feel like as time went on, there was just always some sort of problem. And I feel like where this story, like I just remember being so mad. We used to need to, because before it was level, we had the pool built, and this was gonna kill the grass. This is what my father was all worried about, killing the grass. Now, to me, this was the stupid grass, because every day we needed to pick up this pool and drag it across the yard to a new location so no grass would get killed. And my brother and I were getting sick and tired of this because we would need to go outside and drag the pool around. And it's just like, I'm just like laughing because like, who drags their pool around? And I remember there was one day in particular where I was voicing my concerns. Now, I will say I was probably saying this in a bit of a whiny tone, but He straight up, so picture this, like, so you're picturing your above ground pool, right? And it's empty right now. There's maybe an inch of water at the most. So it's really not that heavy. It's just the liner and the poles. And I have the rim in my hands lifting it up. My father does, and so does my brother. And we're arguing about why we think this is useless. And I was so mad, guys. He ripped the pool out of our hands. He just yanked it away. It like ripped out of our grip. And he was like, I don't remember exactly what he said, but he just kind of went off on us. He's like, fine. He's like, I'm going to do this myself. You guys are going to be complaining about your pool. Like, you're the one making us drag it around the yard.
Yeah, he was like the hero here, fixing the pool, leveling the ground, and getting you guys involved when he was trying to be world's best dad because he was on one of his benders and decided to go away for a couple of nights and ignore his son's birthday. So he comes home and all of a sudden like, I'm going to do this with the kids, and it didn't end up very well, did it?
No, it did not. It actually got to the point where I honestly hated this stupid pool. You know, once it was built, it was fine. And then in the summer afterwards, he was not around, and we built the pool, got it set up, no problem. But
yeah, the three of us, right?
Yeah,
that's
we did
right.
it together. Like, we didn't know what we were doing, but we
got
figured
it up. You guys had a good summer in the pool. But yeah, so there's our little toxic father story time.
Yes.
And let me ask you a question, Paris, because we started off with kind of some humor. But let me ask you, the thing with my ex is when I look back on it, so I was with him for 20 years. It was not good, but I didn't know he was a narcissist. And as he got older, I guess we got older, he started getting worse, particularly when I stopped being codependent. When I stopped being codependent, I mean, this is like a double-edged sword, because when I stopped being codependent, that was the best thing that could ever have happened to me and to my kids. But we had, what was it, like a 2-3 year period of real problems, because I wasn't putting up with it the way that I did, and he needed narcissistic supply. He needed me to easily forgive him, to just ignore everything that he did, put up with silent treatments, whatever it was. The last couple of years, it was pretty bad. So Paris, let me ask you a question. The night that you were woken up by the police, why don't you tell us a little bit about what that did what that did to your relationship with your father? And you can start it. I'll just give a little brief. This happened in August of 2019. My ex, and my son's birthday had been 2 months before that, so this pool incident happened about 2 months prior to that. And Paris and I don't know how my son slept through this, because this was a big ruckus, but my ex, and this is the night, if you watch my channel regularly, you know the story. My ex showed up at the house with a loaded gun, parked outside the house, and promptly passed out in his car. Around 11:30, midnight, somewhere in that range, the police came to the door. Now, when the police come to your door, I don't know if anyone's had an unexpected visit from the police. I have several times related to my ex. They're not quiet about it. They're banging, ringing the door, yelling. And I'll tell you something. For me, as a grown woman, being woken up by the police is one of the scariest things that can happen to you in your life. It's just, you're dead asleep, all of a sudden, bang, bang, police, and the doorbell's ringing, the dogs are freaking out. Well, this happened to Paris as well. So she was there that night. Why don't you tell us, Paris, a little bit? I mean, this is, I guess, toxic relationship story time too, but it's a little more on the tragic side instead of humorous. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what that did to your relationship with your father and what that made you feel?
So I think to talk about my relationship with him, I think I need to go back a little bit beforehand. Is when he first started collapsing, I would have been, I want to say I was 14. And so this happened like a couple weeks before I turned 16. So there had been a 2-year period where prior to this happening, I had been kind of like, I was not as close to him anymore. I can remember, like, I used to feel guilty when I was like 14, 15, kind of wanting my parents to get a divorce. I thought that was like a bad thing for me to do. Now, looking back, like, there was obviously, a reason for that. That is why there's a divorce going on now. And it is a good thing. So I wasn't like super close to him before this happened. However, he was like my father. So I was like kind of more willing to forgive at this time. Prior
Plus,
to
we
that,
didn't know anything about narcissism at this time.
that's true too.
Yeah.
We thought it was just, I don't want to say it's just the way it was, but it kind of was at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
it was what we knew. We thought, like, I thought that was, I don't want to say I thought it was normal, because there were things he did that I knew were obviously not right, but I thought it was kind of like, oh, that's just kind of how dads are.
Yeah.
Type of thing prior to this. So that night was it was a more pivotal turn. I would say I was mad at him for it. I think is the best way to say it. Is I was mad. I was terrified. And the thing is too, when I woke up, I knew that something had happened and my father was causing a problem. I didn't know what it was. My original thought was that he was in the house and he had hurt my mom or something, and that's why the dogs were freaking out, and now the police were here because I don't know I didn't know exactly what was going on, but I thought he had done something. Like, I knew. I knew because he did not come home the night before. I knew that something bad had happened and that he had done it, or he was going to do it, or trying to do it or something.
Yeah.
So I was mad, I would say, at him.
Did you see, the thing always for me is that, it was really once I start being codependent, and it was kind of like this before really, but I feel like there's like this dividing line with him, like where we didn't know and then we knew, and then when he wasn't getting narcissistic supply, it was just he went off the deep end in a major way. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse. I was so confused. I didn't know what to do. But today, when I look back on it, I feel such guilt because my kids were being dragged through this. And that's the thing, I feel so bad for you, Paris, in some ways, because when you are serious about getting married, have like a serious boyfriend, this poor man, because there were so many red flags with my ex, and my own parents, and of course, like many of you, my father's a narcissist, my mother's codependent, so it was, in fact, when the day I got married, my father said to me, make sure he doesn't regret it, like that was the mentality. And I actually said that to Joe one time. I was like, so what would you say to Paris on the day that she gets married? And he was like, if he hurts you at all, I will kill him. Like, you know what I mean? That's that's like a father, you know what I mean? My father is make sure he doesn't, upset you. Make sure he doesn't regret it. That's the type of mentality. So I feel guilty now. Like, I didn't know what was going on, but my kids are being dragged through the mud with this. My son still struggles. He doesn't really talk about this that much the way my daughter does. I don't know if it's like a male-female thing. I know females tend to be a little more vocal. But Paris, let me ask you, with that night that happened with the police, what did you feel when I talked to you the next day? Because my son didn't wake up. Now, Paris was awake. And this is the thing, too. By the time I talked with the police, they took their statement. My ex was taken off in an ambulance. It was 1:30, 2 in the morning, something like that. And I had to go to the hospital. So I had to leave Paris. She was upset. I talked to her for a bit. She was upset, and she was left. What happens if her brother wakes up? She's the one that has to talk to him, and nobody was home. What did that do to you? Like the way that, like when I came home and I talked to you in the morning, having to have this conversation. Actually, guys, I've never asked Paris this before. I'm just curious because for me, this was something that, like in retrospect, it bothered me at the time too. But particularly now, when I think back to it, I feel like there were so many conversations I had with you where I was like, all right, guys, I need to talk to you about your father. All right, guys, I need to tell you this. All right, guys. And it was, by the end, I was sick over it. But what did that do for you, like when I would have a conversation like that with you?
I don't really know how to describe it. I think that night specifically, I don't know, I think I'm using the word right here. I think I felt almost melancholy. Like, I was terrified that night. And that is the night, if I go back, that is the night, like, I've really struggled with PTSD. That is where I got it from, that night, being woken up by the police. So it obviously had an effect on me, but I think it's something that I kind of noticed more over time. Like, when it first happened, I don't know how to describe it. I was like, I was like, okay, here we go. Like, what's going on?
What's happening now?
Yeah.
The thing with PTSD, and this happened to me too, I do not have PTSD the way that Paris does in the way that I suspect my son does, the way Joe has. And I don't know if it's my personality or maybe I'm just blocking it and one day it's going to overwhelm me. The house that we lived in New Hampshire, the back of the house was all windows. It was just all windows. So when everything was happening with my ex, with the police, the ambulance, fire truck, I mean, there was a huge, and this is actually freaky to me too. We're dead asleep and there's all this stuff going on outside. You could see the flashing lights from the back of the house reflecting off the window.
Yes.
It was just it was blue and red lights. Must have been, I don't even know, a couple weeks after this happened. And I was at my house and I heard a police siren go by. I actually panicked. It brought it all back to me. And the same thing happened when I would see it on the street. I would see like sirens or flashing lights, and immediately I was back at that time. And I know later Paris told me that that's exactly the issues that you had with PTSD, was like lights and...
Yes, the flashing lights.
Joe's youngest told me that he doesn't like police. Police make him nervous because he had issues, with the police when his mom was still living at the house. Do you have issues with police, or how do you feel about that?
I have mixed feelings with them. I don't know how to quite describe it. It's more so because on one hand, I respect police officers because they're there to help. But looking back, I really haven't had any good experiences with police officers because I know that some of the things they did, like my father should have been arrested that night. And he was not.
Let me just, just to explain why he should have been arrested, I didn't even know this. Joe was the one that brought this to my attention, and I mentioned it to my divorce attorney, and she said, oh, yes. My ex was sitting in his car on our street with a loaded gun next to him, keys in the ignition, passed out drunk. So technically, he was drunk driving, and he had a loaded gun while intoxicated. The police, and he never said that he was contemplating taking his life, by the way. He never said that. The police said that. They told me, well, I think he might have been contemplating taking his life. He never said that. They looked at it that way, and they were kind of like, well, all right, we'll just let this guy off easy. That affected my children and I, because now trying to get the divorce, I do have a police report on this, but it would have been different. It would have been better for us if he had actually been arrested, which he was not. So go ahead, Paris.
Yeah, so I think to some degree I have some bitterness because of that, because I know that because that was the first event that was really why I had PTSD for so long. There was several events afterwards that would not have happened if the police officers had done their job correctly.
Yeah.
So on one hand, I know that they can't help. I know that we have them for a reason. So I do have a respect for them, but there is something in the back of my mind that I'm they also kind of messed up my life a bit.
Well, that's something Joe and I have spoken about several times. When you're and I guess I don't know what to think about this, because on one hand, here we have people that are sworn to protect and serve, and I respect that. And I don't know that they could know every single thing that goes on. But when I first started this channel, I started it largely because when I found out about narcissism, I didn't know what was going on in my own life. So when I heard, oh my gosh, there's this thing called narcissism and other people don't know this, I have to tell them. There are so many millions of people I know now that have been dealing with this, are dealing with this, were dealing with this. So it seems like there is a responsibility for the police, I guess some medical professionals, but the police particularly, when they're dealing with these issues, to have in the back of the mind, maybe there's something mentally wrong with this person. Maybe they are a narcissist, because if you're a narcissist, you have the potential to be violent and dangerous. So at least to consider it instead of, well, it's a nice neighborhood and, a poor guy, he's probably just having a rough time. And then it affects, me, my kids, and it's not just us, it's other people as well. Same thing happened to Joe. Some of you may know that Joe was literally arrested and brought down to the police several times. He has misdemeanors. It affects his job today. So the issue that we had affected us in our life moving forward. Joe's been affected. His I don't know about his oldest, but his youngest has PTSD. Joe is his career has been hampered because he has misdemeanors. And, as some of you may know, Joe recently lost his job. He was laid off. And he's telling me, now when I apply for a new job, when I talk to them, I'm going to have to explain these misdemeanors away. It's a real problem. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that the police have some responsibility to be aware of this? Maybe to not, take action and ask questions later. Maybe ask questions first and consider the action based on that. Because I also know, and I'm kind of morphing into another category here, the last night my ex and I were together and he tried to get me arrested. If it wasn't for the size difference between us, I would have been arrested. I would have been taken away from my kids, and they could have been in danger being with somebody like this. So I don't know. That's something I might explore on a future video.
Yeah.
So Paris, why don't we, before we end the video, why don't you tell us a little bit how you're doing? Some of you may remember that Paris recently just published her first book. And once the divorce is final, I'm going to be giving away 10 copies of Paris's book. But Paris, tell us a little bit about how it's going with the sales, with what people are saying.
All right, so I have definitely been enjoying being a published author. I've sold actually more books than I expected to so far. So I had the offer for signed copies up, and my goal was to sell 20 signed copies. I have sold out of the 35 copies I ordered to the house. So I actually have more coming to the house now so I can give people signed copies in the future, not to mention selling on Amazon and stuff. And like my mom mentioned, we'll tell you guys the title of the book and everything later so you can know kind of what I'm talking about. And I'd be more than willing to open signed copy sales up again, other than those 10 that she's giving away, so that if you guys want a signed copy, I can get you guys them when that time comes. But for now, I've passed all of the goals I have. I am officially, as of, I think it was, what day was it? Monday?
Oh, Monday, yep.
Monday or Tuesday.
The day that we went to the post office?
Yes.
Yeah, that was Monday.
Monday, I officially started making a profit off of my books. So I spent a total of $184 on publishing this book, which honestly, I was kind of proud of my budgeting skill there. I was kind of impressed with that. I thought it would be higher than that. So I officially got that back, and now what I get is profit from it. I also have something else exciting that I'm trying to set up, is I am attempting to have a book signing at a library. I reached out to a library a few days ago. I called them, which I cannot stand phone calls. They give me so much anxiety,
yes.
So face that fear. Called them, I talked to somebody, he gave me some information. It ended up not working out at that library. However, I'm so grateful to him because he actually reached out to another library in a different town and they might be interested. So I'm working that out now. I contacted them this morning, so now I'm kind of just waiting. So that's my next thing, is I'm trying to set up a book signing.
I am so proud of you, Paris. Although I have to say, you guys, this book that she wrote, it's part of a trilogy, so it's the first. So the first book of the trilogy is out. I've read the second book. I'm now reading the third book.
Why am I getting glared at?
I want to tell you guys, I started it this morning. So here I am. It's early in the morning. Joe sleeps later than I do. I get up early in the morning. So I'm there. I got my dogs around me, and I'm just all comfy, cozy. Like, oh, I'm going to start reading this book. I open it up, and right from the beginning, something terrible happens. And I don't even know what happens because I haven't read it yet. So I haven't read the whole thing yet. As I'm reading it, I was getting very upset. And then I said to Paris, I'm like, oh, I started your book today. So I told her I don't know if I'm going to have to give her a silent treatment or something.
After it's finished, yeah. Book 3 is very much, it's a roller coaster of a book. It starts kind of sad, and then it gets happier, and then it's sad,
that's good.
And then it's happy, and then it kind of ends kind of bittersweet.
Oh,
so sorry.
All right, you guys. So once you start reading these books, you'll know what I'm talking about. But oh my goodness. Thank you, Paris, for coming onto the channel unexpectedly. Impromptu Paris on the channel. I was like having you on. This is kind of a weird week because I had a guest every week. I had Joe on Monday and Wednesday, and now you on Friday.
Yes.
So maybe we'll see you again soon?
Yes, I would not be against that.
Actually, we don't know, right? This morning, when I was reading your book, I had no idea that I was going to put you on the channel.
Oh, that's true.
All right, guys, thank you so much. So let me know, do you like toxic relationship story time? because we have many other stories that we could share. And like I said, humor just, it makes things better, I think. Anyways, what do you think, Paris?
I think so too.
Instead of taking it all seriously, we try to at least get a few laughs out of it, right?
Yes.
And thank God we're moving forward. But I think all of us have been through quite enough at this point.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Well, so thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. If you have any video ideas, by the way, let me know. I've started making a list. I have a whole 2 pages full of them. But I would like to hear what people want videos about. And who knows what we'll have in the future, right?
Yes.
All right, guys, thank you so much. I will see you on Monday with Joe. And I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. God bless.